£21, 99p and free delivery. I'm not joking when I say that this is the single best purchase that I have ever made. If you're wondering what I did in quarantine, which you're probably not because you have no clue who I am, hi, I'm Hegla, I make YouTube videos and I'm here to convince you to buy one of these bad boys. I'm by no means an expert, so if you have any hate mail that you want to send me, please feel free to leave it on my Depop page where I sell all my pyrography products. Shameless plug. Now, let's get into the tips and tricks of how to use this thing. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be showing you the bee coaster that I'm selling on my Depop shop. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description. I don't know why I said that so weirdly. And after this, I'll be showing you what not to do with my tree design. So something you need to do, the first thing, is to have it set at the correct temperature. So I have mine set at about 325 degrees. Try not to burn a hole in yourself or in your plants, as you can see that I almost did. Make sure to experiment gently, and I mean gently, to get the right temperature. So it should be hot enough for you to be able to make a mark when you brush the surface of the wood, but not so hot that it starts to leave like brown marks around your design, because that is not a look that we are going for. No, not today, ladies and gentlemen. Also, another tip, no pun intended, make sure you have the right tip of the pyrography pen on. I use the nib, which is sort of flat, not a round one on these kind of coasters, because I just find that if it's round, it sort of just burns straight through it if it's in soft wood like the wood that I'm using. So I use this small flat one because it allows me to do tiny dots with the corner of it, but I can also do straight lines. So once you have your design drawn out, go ahead and start. Yeah, make sure you start with the area which is darkest, so that if you make a mistake when you're not used to how much pressure it needs, it doesn't really matter, you don't need to start again. So I always start with the outline, as these are always the darkest parts of the image that I'm doing. Another tip is to just be gentle with it and be very patient. Okay, pressing harder won't give you darker marks. You need to leave it there longer or just do repeated strokes to make some bits darker. So as you can see, when I'm doing the darker bit in the middle of the bee, I always go over it once or twice, and I don't press down really hard. And as you can see, when I'm doing the bottom of the bee batty, the bee arse, whatever you want to call it, I'm doing very repetitive strokes up and down to make these little stripes, and I don't leave any bit of the bee untouched. Okay, that sounds a bit weird. I've made a mark on every single bit of the bee basically. And as you can see, when you're moving on to doing the legs, make sure you be very gentle, because pressing hard won't give you like a dynamic sort of look to the line. Like you might see a bee leg is just a straight line, but it's not really. It's got like bits that go out, bits that go in, and then you've got these fine little hairy bits. You've got some nice sexy hairy legs of the bee. And I just keep on repeating this for every single one of the legs of the bee, and I try and make them match, but it doesn't really matter if they don't, because I picked a design which is quite flexible. Okay, and now moving on to the wings. As you can see, I don't press down really hard on the wings because I want it to be a really nice faint line over the top of it. And so I do this by doing short strokes. You know, you can see that I only move like a couple of millimeters at a time before moving on to the next bit. I try and make them as even as possible. And yeah, if you're doing something symmetrical, I definitely recommend doing them both at the same time, just so you can, you know, look between one and the other and make sure they both match each other. So then I move on to the ends of the wings. I add tiny little dots to add a bit of darker texture to them, make sure they're not completely flat. You know, you can see some of the shading, but I don't shade with the side of the nib. I use the tiny little corner of it to make these tiny little dots. And sometimes, yeah, you will need to adjust the temperature halfway through. So on this, you can see I just move it up slightly, just by literally only 25 degrees. If you can notice, I think I put it a little bit too hot because it does make some of the bits of the wings much darker. But you never know, I mean, that does kind of suit the design, so I just did it the same on the next other wing. And yeah, and copied that design over. And that is it for the bee. So moving on to the don'ts. Okay, I'm doing this sort of tree design and it's completely one block colour. Now, I don't mind designs like this, but personally I don't enjoy doing them because it sort of becomes a bit repetitive to just have to fill in. Okay, so a tip with choosing your design, try and not do one with straight lines. Okay, if it's your first time, choose patterns which don't need to be precise, and pick designs with sort of textures on them. So that's why I chose the bee one. It doesn't really matter if one leg is slightly wonky, but if I was trying to do a perfect circle, you'd be able to notice that I have not done it very well. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm sort of pressing quite hard on this, which I shouldn't be because that damages the nib of the pen, and it also does not look good when you burn a massive off hole in the middle of it. As you can see, it's sort of smoking as well. I'm not doing this majorly wrong, but I'm just doing bits of it is not ideal. Like, I'm burning too deep in the wood, which honestly isn't too much of an issue, but if you want a really like smooth design when you touch it, you know, you want to be keeping it even. Yeah, I'm sort of pressing too hard. I've got the nib too hot as well, so I'm going over the lines that I set myself. You can see around the edges, it's sort of going a weird shade of brown, which it shouldn't be, and that's because you heated up the part of the wood that you want to heat up, but you've also heated up all of the wood around it, so it makes it sort of yellowy. And the end result it's not so bad, but it's not the best that it could be. I also haven't rubbed out the pencil lines, which is something that you should definitely do. If you want to watch more videos on how I actually sold this art, I made a video on how to start an online store and also how to use Depop to sell your art, which you can check out over. It should be on the screen somewhere. Just have a look around. Editing Helen will sort that out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more like this, please feel free to subscribe, and it would help me out so much if you put on the bell. Oh, did you hear that? A little bell sound. That was unintentional. I just accidentally clinked my glass whilst picking it up. Anyway, I'm rambling, so I'm going to go now. Have fun and goodbye.